For 8 long years, Jamie Dornan kept his promise. Through hundreds of interviews, red carpets, and endless questions about 50 Shades of Grey, he never once said a word that hinted at what really happened behind the scenes. He smiled, he joked, he deflected, always keeping the truth tucked quietly behind his calm, charming eyes. But that silence broke during a recent interview in London. It started like any other, the kind of relaxed conversation Jamie had done countless times before. The host asked about his career, his family, and how life had changed since the world first met him as Christian Grey. Then came the question that changed everything. If you could reveal one secret you've kept from your fans for years, what would it be? Jamie leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, softly, almost hesitantly, he replied, "It's about Dakota. Something people don't know about her." The host froze. The audience went completely silent. Jamie looked down at his hands, his voice trembling slightly as he continued. Everyone saw her strength on screen, confident, graceful, fearless. But what they didn't see was how much pain she was hiding behind that. Those words were enough to ignite a storm. Within minutes, social media was on fire. Jamie Dornan reveals Dakota's dark secret, read the first headline. "What was she hiding all these years?" shouted another. But back in that studio, the tone wasn't sensational. It was heartfelt, almost mournful. Jamie wasn't exposing a scandal, he was revealing something far more human. He went on quietly, "When we were filming the first movie, she was under so much pressure. The world was judging her. Every look, every scene, every line she spoke. People thought she was fearless. But the truth is, she was breaking inside." The interviewer tried to ask more, but Jamie didn't stop. It was as if 8 years of silence had finally reached their limit. "There were days," he said softly, "when she'd show up on set with that smile everyone knows. But I could see it wasn't real. She carried a lot. People don't realize how brutal Hollywood can be, especially for someone like her. The gossip, the criticism, the labels, they took a toll." He paused, eyes glistening with emotion. "She's one of the strongest people I've ever met. But her strength came from pain. That's her secret. Her darkness became her light." The audience barely breathed. It wasn't a revelation of scandal, it was an act of love. A rare moment of vulnerability from a man who had spent nearly a decade protecting someone else's truth. By the time the interview ended, the internet had exploded. Hashtags like #Dakota's Secret, #Jamie Reveals Truth, and number 8 years of silence dominated every platform. Some fans speculated wildly, wondering if Jamie was hinting at a hidden romance or a long-buried confession. But those who listened closely understood, this wasn't gossip. It was gratitude. As one viewer commented online, he didn't expose her. He honored her. Entertainment shows replayed the clip in slow motion, analyzing every gesture, every tone. Jamie's eyes, his voice, they carried more weight than words ever could. For once, he wasn't speaking as a co-star or a celebrity. He was speaking as someone who had seen Dakota Johnson at her most vulnerable, and still chose to protect her even in truth. In the days that followed, more details emerged from those who had worked on 50 Shades. One crew member recalled, "Dakota had so much pressure on her. People said awful things about her performance, about her body, about her chemistry with Jamie. But she never complained. She just kept going." He was the only one who really saw how much it cost her. Those who were there began to understand what Jamie meant when he said, "dark secret." It wasn't darkness in a destructive sense. It was the quiet, invisible battle she fought behind the perfect Hollywood smile. And Jamie had carried that truth with him for 8 years, not to protect himself, but to protect her. He closed that interview with one final line that would stay etched in the minds of everyone who heard it. "Dakota isn't just strong because she survived Hollywood. She's strong because she turned her pain into art, and she never let the world see her bleed." As the cameras faded to black, there was no applause, no laughter, just silence. The kind that lingers after something real has been said. And while the world rushed to speculate, Jamie simply stood up, thanked the host, and walked away, leaving behind a single, haunting question. What had really happened to Dakota Johnson during those years of fame? And why did Jamie Dornan choose now to reveal her secret? The morning after Jamie's interview aired, Hollywood was spinning. Every network replayed the same few seconds, his trembling voice, the look in his eyes, and those haunting words. She was breaking inside. For fans who had followed Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson since their 50 Shades days, it felt like an earthquake. Social media buzzed with confusion, empathy, and speculation. But amid all the noise, one question rose louder than the rest. What exactly did Dakota go through, and why did Jamie wait 8 years to speak? At first, Dakota Johnson remained silent. She didn't post, didn't appear in public, didn't respond to the hundreds of calls her team received. But then, 3 days later, she broke her silence in the most unexpected way, through a quiet, handwritten note shared on Instagram. It read, "Some truths don't belong to one person. They belong to two. Jamie has always known my truth, because he was there when I couldn't carry it alone." The world froze. It was both an acknowledgement and a thank you. A silent confirmation that what Jamie had said wasn't a betrayal, but a gesture of love. Soon after, Dakota agreed to appear in a long-form magazine interview. For the first time, she spoke openly about the years following 50 Shades. "When the world saw me smiling on those red carpets," she said softly, "I was falling apart inside. I was overwhelmed, insecure, and constantly told who I should be. People think fame gives you power, but for me, it took mine away." Her honesty was raw, unfiltered, and vulnerable. "There were days I didn't want to leave my house," she continued. "I doubted myself constantly. I felt like the whole world was watching me fail." Then she paused, her eyes filling with emotion. "But Jamie never left. He didn't judge me. He listened, he understood. He saw through the noise, and that saved me." Those words changed everything. What had started as a dark secret turned into a story of loyalty, friendship, and compassion. Fans who once searched for scandal now flooded social media with messages of support. Hashtag Jamie and Dakota forever. Hashtag true friendship. And hashtag her strength trended globally. In a follow-up interview, Jamie finally shared why he chose to speak after all these years. "I kept quiet because it wasn't my story to tell," he explained. "But I realized the world misunderstood her. They called her cold, distant, difficult, and none of that was true. She was just protecting herself. I spoke because people needed to see the real Dakota, not the version the tabloids invented." He went on to describe the toll of their fame. "After 50 Shades, everything changed. People assumed we were living this glamorous dream, but in reality, we were surviving it. We leaned on each other. We were two people trying to stay human in an industry that feeds on fantasy." It wasn't a confession of love in the romantic sense. It was something purer, a bond forged in honesty, respect, and shared struggle. In the days that followed, other actors began sharing similar stories, about the pressures of fame, about anxiety, about the loneliness that comes with constant scrutiny. Jamie's revelation had started something bigger. A conversation about empathy in an industry built on illusion. Even Dakota's mother, actress Melanie Griffith, weighed in. In an emotional interview, she said, "I'll always be grateful to Jamie for protecting my daughter when she couldn't protect herself. Not every man would do that." Meanwhile, Jamie and Dakota were spotted together again, not on a red carpet, but walking through a park in London. No photographers invited, no official appearance. Just two friends walking side by side, talking quietly. In one photo, Dakota laughed. In another, Jamie reached out to steady her when she slipped on the damp pavement. The pictures went viral, of course, but this time, the captions weren't about gossip. They were about healing. One fan wrote, "He kept her secret not to hide it, but to honor it. And when he finally spoke, it wasn't to expose her. It was to remind us that even the strongest hearts need someone to hold them up." By the end of the week, both actors had moved on from the headlines. They returned to their lives, to their work, to their quiet friendship that had already survived so much. But something had changed. The world now saw them differently. Jamie Dornan was no longer just the man who played Christian Grey. He was the man who stood up for the woman who trusted him most. And Dakota Johnson wasn't the fragile figure people once pitied. She was a survivor, a symbol of resilience. In a closing note of her magazine piece, Dakota wrote, "We all have our darkness. The only difference is some people find light in it, and I was lucky enough to find mine standing beside me." The story that began as a headline about a dark secret ended as a lesson in humanity. Proof that sometimes, the most powerful confessions aren't about scandal, but about truth, compassion, and the courage to finally let the world see the real you. As one reporter beautifully summed it up, after 8 years of silence, Jamie Dornan didn't reveal Dakota Johnson's secret, he revealed her strength.